Hi everybody, it is TashB with another episode of TashB TV, and I am so super excited today because I have Casey Lightbody from the Quiet Collective joining me today, and she is an amazing woman who works with amazing women, but specifically with introverted women, and help them find their confidence and find their voice in a very noisy and busy business landscape. So Casey, welcome to TashB TV.
Tash, thank you so much for having me. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, look, I find it's just such an interesting and niche space that you work in, working with introverted women. So fill me in and fill the audience into, how did you get started? What was your journey that led you to this point to start this business?
Sure, Tash. So it goes back to when I was probably a teenager. So I was a teenage girl, and my mum and dad sat me down, and I had probably 2 or 3 years left of school, and they said, look, like, have you considered what you want to do when you leave school? And I was really adamant. My dad had been an entrepreneur, and I was really adamant that I wanted to start my own business. And so I said to them, I want to start my own business. And so I went to university and I did a business degree. I majored in marketing, but of course, all those dreams fell by the wayside as I fell into the status quo. We moved to London after I graduated university in South Africa, and I got a job working for a big global financial house, and loved all the trappings that came with living the corporate life. And I gradually worked my way up the corporate ladder, all in marketing and relationship management for this global financial house, and kind of let that dream of wanting to have my own business slide. And so things, we got married, we had the children. And when we immigrated to Australia, I said to my husband, my kids were about to start school, and I said, this is the opportunity, this is the time. I'd felt this kind of burning light in the background. It had never dimmed completely. And I said, this is the time that I really want to take the plunge and start my own business. And so he was really supportive. He was like, the kids are in school, and now's a perfect opportunity. So I took the plunge and I launched my marketing consulting business. And I went into marketing just because that's what I knew, that's what I'd done, that's what I'd studied at university. And so I just did what I thought I could do. And gradually, this just started by word of mouth. My marketing and consulting business, I actually had a part-time job on the side, and gradually built up that marketing consulting business that it could replace the part-time income. And I grew it into an agency with about 5 staff and 6 figures, and it was doing amazingly, Tash. But in that, I realized how much of myself I was having to invest into the business. And I realized so much for myself. One, that I was actually an introvert. I mean, I only realized that in that time. Previously, as I come across probably quite outgoing, one-on-one, but I realized how much of my energy was sapped in terms of putting myself out there. And so that was that moment that I realized that I was an introvert. The second thing I realized in building that business was how much of a personal development journey it was, as much as a business development journey. And so I really started spending a lot of time investing in myself, and realizing how much of myself I was holding back to really step into that next level of being who I really was. And so, so as I realized that, inside the marketing agency, I realized that the type of women that I actually loved to work with were all just like me. So they were in professional services, yes, and yet they were struggling in some way, shape or form. And the reason for that is, one, they were probably identified as introverts, and so that they were struggling around this whole piece around energy and how to actually manage that as they built their businesses. And the second piece was how much they were maybe using their introversion as an excuse to hide behind, because there were these issues around mindset and self-confidence and what they needed to do to really step up into that next level of leadership. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, these are the women that I really want to help. These are the women just like me. I'm stepping into this position, and I want to be able to shine the light on other women doing amazing things too. And so that's when the Quiet Collective was born. And so I kind of I have a portion of that marketing consulting business going still, but really the core of my business is the Quiet Collective. That's my passion project, and it's really around helping, as you said, introverted women really step off the sidelines and shine in their own way, in whatever way that looks like for them.
Wow, what a journey. What a story. I mean, you've got halfway around the world, you know, lived in multiple countries, landed in Australia and decided to start your business in Australia. Did you have any contacts before or a network to get yourself started?
No, I often laugh at this, is that when we were considering, so we were trying to weigh up whether we were going to stay in the UK, whether we were going to move back to Africa, which is where we were born, or whether we were going to look for somewhere else. And there was talk of moving to Australia, but we'd never actually visited Australia in our lives before. So it was a bit of a leap of faith to actually immigrate here and choose Australia as home. But, you know, the moment that we landed in Brisbane, we felt completely at home. But that being said, no, we didn't know anyone. I had my best friend who'd actually immigrated the month before, and so we knew her and her husband. But other than that, we knew nobody in Brisbane at all. And so I didn't have a network, and really had to focus on building that up, you know, slowly when we first started.
Because that's a really big thing to do too, is that because at this time you hadn't recognised yourself as an introvert. You still, so you had to go out and build your business without knowing anybody from the ground up. Tell me, how did you go about doing that?
I was joking about this yesterday, actually, because we were talking about networking. Yep. So there's a couple of things. One was my kids started school when we moved to Australia, and you know, obviously the school mum network is very strong, and so as my kids started school, I obviously embedded myself into the school culture and really spent a lot of time forming relationships at my children's school. So that was the first step, is actually leveraging those relationships. So I had relationships with the school mums and started to talk about what I was planning to do, and actually got my first couple of leads through that network. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I did was, because I didn't know any better, and I do know now, but I decided to immerse myself into networking. And so I started going to networking events, so business networking events, Tash, and really starting to put myself out there in a way that felt completely uncomfortable for me. So that was one thing that another realization of mine was that I realized how much of an introvert I was when I was in those situations, you know. And so, yeah, but I just did what I needed to do to build my business at the time. So, yeah, spent some time really forming some relationships through meeting people at networking events.
So really, you were clearly very focused then to put yourself through that high level of discomfort to say, I must make this work. So what was going on for you at that time? So because you've made the decision that when you've immigrated to Australia that you're not going back into corporate land, that you're desperately wanting to get this to work for yourself. So what was going on in your head there? Did you kind of have an imaginary deadline in your head, or that it has to work by this point, or what was your driving force there?
Tash, you know, I'm not, looking back on it, I'm not really sure. I think I probably just didn't know any better at the time. Okay. I just thought that that's what you did, right? It was almost like you're starting your business, you need to start to meet people, and the only way that you're going to meet people is through networking events. So I actually didn't know that there were other ways to build relationships at that time. It was like almost like that's kind of all I knew at the time. And I did have the Chamber of Commerce and the BNIs and other kind of events. And that's just kind of because I think I'd spoken to my bank manager at the time, and he'd said, you're starting your business, you need to join the Chamber of Commerce, you know, the local chamber or something like that. And it was almost like I didn't know any better at the time, and I just knew how focused I was on making this business work, you know, so that I'd had the kind of trust and support of my husband, and I was really adamant that I wanted to make a go of it, you know, and that this had been such a dream of mine for so long that I just wanted to bring it to fruition. And so that's kind of really why I did what I did.
Okay, so then you've moved through, you've created your business, you've got your successful agency. So how many years in was it that you had to, actually probably before I ask that question, how long have you been in Australia for now?
So we are going on 10 years. We've just gone,
Fantastic.
had our 10-year anniversary. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. It's been
Wow.
crazy. And I think I probably started my business around 3 years in. So say I've been in business for around seven years in total, probably.
Okay.
The agency was going for about 3 years, three years when I decided to do the kind of major pivot that I call it. Was kind of this mic drop moment. And I remember there'd been a lot of stuff going on in terms of how I'd set my business up. And again, this all comes through experience and learning about who I was as a person. But it was an agency model and I was just exhausted, Tash. Like I was burning the candle at both ends. Excuse me. You know, and I had an amazing client base and I had a team, but I just felt like I was juggling all these balls, and it was just so sorry. Let me just have a sip.
Yeah, of course. So it had almost got to the point where you felt as though you were back in corporate land.
100%. 100%. So I just felt like suddenly, instead of having one boss, I had 20 bosses, and I just had all these things going on in my head. And I was like, oh, what have I created for myself? I'm not sure that this is really what I want, right?
Yep. Yes, I can relate to that. Absolutely, yes.
I talked about it being this kind of moment in time, and I had this realization, and I thought, you know what, this is not working as it's working. It's just not going, it's not sustainable for me. It's not what I want. I wanted to start a business so that I could have the freedom and flexibility to be with my children, and I haven't got that. And so really, what do I want? And I just joked because it was about 2:30 in the afternoon. I'd hate to think what I was like, because I had to go and do the school run, but I said, I'm going to go and pour myself a glass of wine, and I'm going to go and sit on the porch, and I'm just going to just be, and just hope that something comes up for me, but I've just got to just sit and just listen to myself, you know. And it was almost like that's what I did, Tash. And it was this lightning bolt moment when I realized that those were the women that I wanted to support. Like inside all of what I'd created, those are the women that I really wanted to help, serve, support, and be able to help them create successful businesses. And so that was that moment, you know. It was just almost like there and then, and it was like, okay, well, what do I need to do now to then kind of do this complete pivot?
Well, it's amazing what you find when you stop, right, and you just sit in the stillness and just push everything else to the side, isn't it? And just go, right, what am I doing? Where am I going? Because I guess I see it as such an important thing to do myself, and I know that it's been an important part of my journey too. So, and of course the glass of wine. I mean, that's that's imperative. So it was that moment that you just went, right, this just isn't working for me. Strip it back. Where do I want to go? So you pretty much broke what you built.
Pretty much blew it up completely, which was it was a pretty huge decision and very scary, you know. But again, I just come back to, Tash, you've got to follow your heart, you know. You've just got to trust intuition, and you've just got to really take the time to listen. So again, like you shared, it's that getting quiet and with yourself that is potentially such a hard thing for some of us, you know. And that's why I love that I've actually now the Quiet Collective, because it's got such a multitude of meanings, you know. But for me, I've always been someone who is run before I can walk, tick off all the boxes, high achieving, type A, want to do all the things, ambitious, you know. So I've been like that all my life, you know, competitive. That is me, and enjoy being busy, like enjoy having stuff to do. That I found it very difficult actually to really sit and take time to just be quiet and to really listen. And that moment was the realization for me that I need to do that more. Like I really need to actually spend time, just taking time every single day to listen. And so a lot of it goes into what's in here. It's what's, you know, in your gut, you have the answers, right? And it's just actually quietening all the chatter to really hear what's being said to you. And of course, I get it wrong sometimes, and sometimes I get it right. But at the end of the day, it's just so important. And I think it's easy to forget as you're building a business that piece is so important.
Yeah. So tell me about this then. So you've built something beautiful that you loved. You've put so much love and passion and energy into that. How did you feel? So what did you do? Did you break up with your clients, or did you hand them off to somebody else? How was that?
I did both. So I gradually, we worked in a project-based work predominantly, you know, so I kind of wound down a couple of big projects that I was working on. I actually just kept a couple of clients that I absolutely adore working with still. So I'm still doing that a little bit, but not so much. And then a couple of clients that I thought were better suited. Elsewhere, I handed over to other marketing consultants that I knew. So I gradually just, kind of dissolved. So I didn't say, okay, it's all done and dusted, that's the end, you know, but some projects just naturally came to an end. Others I handed off, and others, a couple, as I said, I kept and still have today.
And now it's about working with introverted women, helping them find their voice, get out and to get their business out in a very noisy, busy world that can be very overwhelming. I think that even for some extroverts, I think they could probably find the landscape at the moment to market a business quite overwhelming. So talk to me about that, about your business now.
Yes, so for me, Tash, it feels like I've come home. Like, honestly, like that's how I feel about it. It is a complete passion project. It doesn't feel like work. I think I was sharing with you offline that I had a conversation today. We had a guest expert Q&A where I was actually the guest expert inside my membership, and we had our members asking me questions around, building my business and that kind of thing. And it doesn't feel like work. Like, for me, I just adore every moment that I have in my business. And so that for me is just complete evidence that I've made the right decision, And so for me, it's threefold. In terms of the Quiet Collective, Tash, we cover three different pillars. So the one is courage. So it's all around actually how can you start to master your mind to really step into who you need to be to build your business. And we do that via various ways, but for me, that's the kind of one of the most important pillars is really being able to build that courage muscle, and that you can actually step into that next stage of business. The second thing is clarity. So again, I think there's so much, as you said, noise outside. It's almost like, where do you turn to get the advice that you really need? And so I'm very mindful of the content that I create and the content that I curate from experts, because predominantly the Quiet Collective is the curation of content rather than me stepping into being the expert. I, as I said, love shining the light on other women doing amazing things. And so a lot of the content's curated, but it's all through an introverted lens, because I think as introverts, there's things that we want to do that don't necessarily feel aligned to how it should be done. It's that cookie cutter formula. And I go back to talking about that whole networking event. Networking for me, I put myself out there so much in those early days, Tash, that it completely stopped me in my tracks. Like, I just actually didn't go to a networking event. I went and I went and I went until I didn't go. And I was just like, I actually can't go anymore, because this is just so out of my comfort zone and so exhausting for me. And I hate every moment of it. And I just felt that I wasn't connecting with the right people.
Yeah.
And so I talked about this, okay, well, how did I actually then start to connect with people? And I said, predominantly I started connecting with people online. That's how I first started to actually meet my people. And once I did that and met my people, then I thought, okay, well, now I'm craving that kind of in-person connection. What can I do? And so I created my own, right? I created my own, what I called unnetworking event. And so it was a group of women that we felt great being around, And so it's that piece around clarity about finding your own way. It's so important. Like, I can give you all the tools and strategies and resources, but it's all through an introverted lens, and then it's up to the individual to find their path. And that's what's so important. I think around the Quiet Collective is this opportunity to take off your mask, let go of all this kind of bravery, and just take off your mask and be who you really are. Find your path through the resources and the different ways that we can show you what's available. And then the last piece is around connection, Tash, because I don't believe that we can do it ourselves. Like we can't do it alone. And that's been proof over and over again for me. I say that it takes a village to raise a business, and I just wholeheartedly believe in that. And so so around
I agree with you on that. I hold the same philosophy as well, is that you can't do everything on your own, and that you do need support of other people. So yeah, I'm with you on that, Casey. Yeah.
It's huge, right? It's huge. In fact, I was having such an amazing conversation with one of our guest experts on the seminar coming up, Jennifer Love, and she was talking about actually how women need double the amount of dopamine and serotonin to feel good about themselves, and the way that they get that is through both internal and external validation. And that's why coming together in communities is so important for us, because we get that feeling to actually then drive us forward in our business. It was fascinating to talk to her actually and really hear the actual science behind it all too. But yeah, that's really what I'm focused on. It's the accountability, it's the support, it's the collaboration, it's the connection, which is such a massive part that I think is so important.
That just sounds amazing. And I know too, from having been involved in some of your groups and watching your work too, you do create just this beautiful space that I always find it quite interesting that I look and go, oh look, here's a group of introverted women. Who's going to be the first one to speak? Because they're all introverted, and who's going to put their hand up? But it's just amazing watching the layers unfold and people just turning around and being comfortable in their own skin and being able to share their journey and sharing what it is that they're on. And you create an absolutely beautiful space to allow people to come forward.
Thank you.
Do that. Yes. And I think too, one of the other points that you raised as well about where you're forcing yourself to do networking. Again, today we've got so many avenues to go to use to generate business. And
Right.
that you're right, is that finding that space that works for you, that you feel really, really comfortable working in that space. That's it, isn't it? I firmly believe that you do need to try things on, step outside your comfort zone, do something you wouldn't normally do, because you don't know if you're going to like it, until you try it. But hey, if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't feel right once you've tried it, then hey, there's something else to try. It's like food, isn't it? Really.
Exactly, Tash. So true. I love that. And you bang on, that's exactly it, is that you don't want to take such a giant leap out of your comfort zone that it stops you in your tracks. I always talk about how to actually, and it's a term that a really dear friend of mine, Beth Bilo, uses about expanding your capacity zone, right? So you think of it as an elastic band, and it's almost like, okay, how much can I stretch this? Because I don't want to take this giant leap, but I want to be able to expand my courage just that bit. And I might get some sweaty palms, and I might feel a bit, my heart might be racing a little bit, but it's not going to be so scary that it's going to stop me in my tracks. And that's where you want to be. That's where you want to be, stepping out to really push yourself that little bit more, to try new things. And as you said, you don't know whether you're going to enjoy them or not. For me, that was when I started my podcast. I didn't know whether I was going to love it or not, but I just knew that I didn't really like blog writing that much. And I thought, well, what else can I do to audience build? And so I thought, well, I'll try podcasting. And look where that's got me, just stepping into podcasting has kind of evolved into this whole event. And
I have a firm belief too, is that as long as you take small steps in the direction that you want to move into, it just keeps flowing, and and that's it. So you just take baby steps and you just keep moving and you keep growing, and then all of a sudden you're looking, wow, what have I done here? I've done that.
Exactly.
So what do you find is one of the biggest challenges for introverted women in business?
Tash, the thing that comes up for me over and over again is this idea of visibility and putting themselves out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is the challenge that I hear from so many women, is that, what are people going to think of me? I don't want to be the person saying, look at me, and have the spotlight on me. I don't know how to put myself out there in a way that feels comfortable. I don't want to be visible in my business. those are the challenges that come up over and over again for me. So, and that's what we really want that's kind of what I want. The intention behind the Quiet Collective is that it doesn't have to be like that. Like really this whole idea of putting yourself out there, you can really turn on its head, because at the end of the day, if you're not putting yourself out there, the impact that it's having on you, your family, your community, the world as a whole is just so massive, And so that's what I really want to talk about in terms of challenges, is that we need to find ways of actually overcoming this idea of not wanting to put yourself out there, So there's different there's a whole different, well, actually we touch on all three pillars around that again, in terms of putting ourselves out there. So one is this courage piece too, like we've got to start to work on how can we start to reframe our thinking and bust through those fears of putting ourselves out there. What are the strategies that we need to be doing, to be looking at, okay, well, why is this holding me back? What am I afraid of? And what could happen if I did start to put myself out there, So we really work through that whole idea of, okay, well, say, what are people going to think of me? Well, what's and who cares at the end of the day? They're probably so involved in their own business that they're probably not even noticing you for a start. I hear so many, my website, I've got to get my website up, but what's going to happen if I press the publish button? The reality is you've got to get people to come to your website, right? It's in the interwebs, but you've got to get people to come, So it's busting through those fears is the big one. And then the second piece around that is getting the clarity of how you want to put yourself out there in a way that feels good for you. We touched on that about actually finding ways that we could really that could really work for you. So trying new things, putting them on for size, and then testing them, because those are kind of the marketing and selling tactics that we need to be trying to find a way that really suits our way of working, our way of being, and then the best way that works for our clients too, because at the end of the day, we've got to find ways that work for our clients as well, right?
Yeah. Yes. So, it's fabulous. Now, you also mentioned that you're doing some work, you're putting together a seminar. And I know this is something that you do on a yearly basis, because it was how I first discovered you, was your very first seminar.
Way back when.
Which I think was 4 years ago now, 5 years ago. And I've got to say, it blew my world. It totally blew my world when I'm like, oh my word, look at all these people that have online businesses, and wow, there's other people that are scared of, putting themselves out there and going through the same fears and things that I do. So, I mean, I know when it's brought up, it blew my mind. It changed my world completely. So thank you, Casey. But so you're talking about, so you've got another seminar coming up that you've just been recording. So can you fill me in? What's happening in this seminar?
I absolutely can. But first of all, and I just want to mention, and look where you are now, Tash. Isn't it amazing? 4 years on, who just thought that you had your own TashB TV show, and look where you're going. It's so amazing, and I just love that. You see, I get goosebumps seeing that kind of stuff. So it's so exciting. I love it. But yes, I'm super excited. As I shared, like that podcast that I first launched back 4 or 5 years ago, kind of drove me into hosting Virtual Summit, which is now my thing. I absolutely adore it, Tash. It's my opportunity to really find women that are doing amazing things in the world and bring their expertise to other introverted women to really show them what's possible around putting themselves out there, right, and building businesses on their terms. And so last year I did something a little bit different last year, whereby I hosted the summit was split into different tracks around business foundations, and I had our attendees actually self-identify the area that they needed to focus on most, and they then had to go through that particular track to then be able to implement what they learned in the summit. And as a result of those learnings, unsurprisingly, selling was a big thing. It was obviously one of the most popular tracks. And so this year, I really wanted to focus and go really narrow and deep on this topic of selling as an introvert. Because, again, it comes back to the challenges, right? So if you are not selling inside your business, you do not have a business. You have a very expensive hobby, right?
Yes.
And this is the thing that I'm so passionate about, because at the end of the day, if you're not selling, it's going to, one, have a massive, massive impact on your self-esteem and your self-confidence. Like if you're not selling, it's this constant slog. And I've been there. Like I've been in those moments where I'm not making any money in my business, and it just does such destruction to your self-confidence and self-esteem. And so that's why personally I think it is so important to understand that selling is service. Selling is not you taking things from people. Selling is you actually transforming people's lives, right? And so it's this idea of actually being of service. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the impact that it has on your family. So again, you know, if you are working 9 to 5 and then trying to build a business on the side, like if you're not selling that business on the side, you're going to be stuck in your 9 to 5 forever, unhappy and wishing that something else is going to change. The other scenario is that you are not working in a 9 to 5 and you are relying on this to actually start to be, you know, be an income generator for you. And then if that's not working, the impact that can have again on your family is just massive, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I know one of the ways that I put it is that you can't help anybody if you can't afford to eat, you know, and that's a really, you know, when you put it that way, that, you know, you've got this dream that you're wanting to put out there, that you're wanting to put it out into the world, and you're wanting to help people and you're wanting to build a business. But you know what? If you can't eat, then you're not helping anybody at all. So selling, it is. You've got to make sales.
It's so massive, you know. And then exactly, and as you said then, Tash, that's the impact on you personally, you know. But then, like your bigger vision, your bigger mission is going to be helping other people, right? Now, if you're not selling, what is that taking away from those people that you want to serve? You know, like the impact and influence that you could potentially be having on your communities and on the world as a whole is just so huge, you know. And so that's why I am so passionate about this topic of selling, because it's such a critical piece of business success, right? And so the seminar goes into the entire sales process. We cover everything from prospecting through to closing, through to follow-up, through to nurturing on the back end. We cover the entire process. We then cover actual specific tactics through an introverted lens, so things like selling via webinars, or selling via Facebook Lives, or selling from stage, or selling via discovery calls. So we have that. And then we cover the mindset stuff, which is such a critical piece too, right? How do you master your mindset? What is your money mindset? What are the things that we need to look at? What are the stories and beliefs that you carry that are actually stopping you from selling, you know? And so that's kind of really the entire seminar coming up. So it's over 5 days. We've got 28 speakers, and it's been an amazing conversations. I'm super excited about that, because off the back we then are taking those learnings and putting it into a playbook.
Okay, great.
So then to go through that and say, okay, what are the steps that I need to do to create a sales game plan that really works for me? And we work through a playbook together 4 weeks, over 4 weeks after the seminar finishes as well. So so super excited about that.
So I think that it's fair to say that even though your target audience is introverted women, I think that the whole broader business community is really going to be able to get a lot out of this. You don't need to be an introverted woman to get benefit of learning how to sell, learning how to get prospects, learning how to sell from stage, from Facebook Live, all of those things. I think that it's really something for everybody. That's massive. That is
and so true. That's so true. And actually, some of the speakers are extroverted. They've worked with introverts, but they are extroverted. And you've raised a great point, Tash. It's so critical for everybody to learn skills. Like selling is it's a learnable skill, right? And so we've got to just learn how to embrace that, and then think about the impact that it's having on your life and the lives of others when you're not doing that, right? And so it's applicable to everybody, I think, in business.
Absolutely. I know myself, because of similar, marketing career too, and I actually made a decision that I wanted to move from marketing to sales because I wanted to understand and to build that deeper relationship with customers. And going from having, created the tools for the salespeople to use to then actually being the salesperson, it really is, particularly when you're canvassing and, it's different once you've got an account and you can account management, but canvassing and getting clients across the line the first time and going in there for the first time, it's really, it is a mindset piece and a big learning. I know the very first cold call I had to do, I'm sitting in the car and I'll phone my husband and he's there going, what's wrong? I can't do it. He said, what are you talking about? You talk to anybody. We're at a party on Saturday night. And, you were just talking to me. I said, yeah, I had 3 wines under my belt. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm not about to go and do that now. He's just said, Tash, I assure you, they do not have a knife under the counter. They are not going to, stab you. They're not going to kill you. The worst thing that they're going to say to you is, can you please come back another time? And I've got to say, Casey, that was exactly it, this fear that I put on there. And, and I had to force myself time and time again to walk in cold call, similar to what you had to do when you started your consulting business. And, there's definitely a skill in that. And look, I'm still alive. Nobody killed me. The worst thing that happened was that somebody said, no, you need to make an appointment, come back. It's okay.
Exactly. And I love that. A mentor of mine always shared this with me, and I love what she used to say. She said, so what's the fear? What's coming up for you? And so you kind of identify the fear, and then you're like, okay, well, worst case scenario, what could possibly happen? And you talk about what could possibly happen. Like you said, they're not going to stab you. Like the worst they could probably say is come back later. Well, what's the best thing that could happen? And then you'd say, well, you could win their account and it could be worth $100,000, whatever. And then she says, and the thing is that you're not making oxygen unless you, unless you start in some kind of nasty oxygen. You're not making oxygen. You'll be right. You'll survive. Whatever scenario you're in, you will survive.
Oh, fabulous! Great. So you've got 28 speakers, 5 days. When does it start?
But it kicks off on the 8th of April.
8th of April.
Monday, the 8th of April. So the 8th to the 12th. So a couple of weeks. You can start to sign up from Monday.
Yes, from Monday
the 25th
of March. Yes.
Yes. So you can start to, you can sign up and be registered, and you can then we kick off on the actual 8th of March. I think we have about 5 or 6 speakers a day over each of the days, and you can watch them at your leisure. So they are available for 48 hours after each one goes live.
Okay.
And you have that.
Fabulous. And how do we register? That's really good. Casey, you've got to sell it.
I've got to sell it. Yes, absolutely.
Where do we find you?
So, Tash, I will share the link with you. It is quietcollective.com.
The link is right here on the screen. So
perfect. So quietcollective.com.au/sales-strategy-seminar.
Fabulous. Okay, but the link is right there, and of course the link is accompanying this video everywhere around the place too. So fabulous. And where else can we find you, Casey? Because if we need more Casey in our lives, where else can we aim to be able to find you?
So definitely come and sign up to the Quiet Collective. So that's thequietcollective.com.au, or otherwise inside our free Facebook group, which is the Introverted Women in Business Facebook group. So Tash, I'll share those links with you too, but I would love to keep the conversation going around introversion, and that it is actually a superpower, and we need to embrace it to really be able to build our businesses our way. So thank you.
Absolutely. Now, just before we go, I need to extract from you, please, the best piece of business advice you've ever received.
Gosh, I've had so many nuggets of great advice over the years. Whether I've actually taken them or not is a different story. But my best piece of advice would be, Tash, is to take the time to listen to you. You can have advice from others, and you can take that on board, but really ultimately you have all the answers deep inside you. You need to be able to really quieten yourself to listen to those, trust yourself, that those are the right answers for you, and that they will happen at the right moment for you. So as much as you might want to run, take the time to really listen. It's just served me so well since I've realized that, and that would be my parting piece of advice for everybody.
Fabulous. Well, this has just been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, Casey, that sharing your journey, and I think that so many people will get so much out of the journey that you've gone through from getting started, particularly starting a business, breaking it, going, finding what it is that lights you up, whether it's your passion, and now how you go about helping people and working people. And in your words, I think you said that you're having fun in your business, that every day brings you joy in what it is that you do. And that's what life's supposed to be about, isn't it? Is doing the things that light you up. So, wow, thank you so much for sharing all of that and all those wonderful tips to get started in your business. If you're an introverted woman, courage, clarity, and what's the third C? Connection. That's it. So connect into the Facebook group and keep the conversation going. And please don't forget to sign up for the summit, because I have attended the summits before. They are nothing short of amazing. That there is so much wealth of knowledge that is shared. And I think sales is just something that is so important. Like I said, you need to eat, and you need to give other people the opportunity to work with you. So learn those skills. Fabulous. Casey, thank you so very, very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I've had such a ball. So thank you so much, Tash. It's been a lot of fun.
Great. Thanks, Casey.